All right. Welcome to the podcast, Henrique. I'm excited to have you joining me on the Becoming Conscious podcast.
Thank you so much.
Um,
I'm really excited to be present with you all.
yeah, me too. Uh, so I think that it would be cool to start out if you want to just explain who you are so that the listeners know a little bit of the context of what this conversation is going to be about.
Yeah, sure. So sometimes it's hard to introduce myself. I don't even know how to call me. Sometimes people call me coach. Sometimes people call me teacher. Sometimes people call me guru. It's crazy. So I just don't call myself anything. Um, so Well, I actually I graduated a law school here in Brazil. I'm from Brazil, by the way. So if my English is not top perfect, it's because of that. And yeah, it's all good. I graduated at law school. I worked in a prosecutor's office, and I dropped all of that life, to be dedicated 100% to exploring consciousness. So in my early journey, it was consciousness and healing. It was about those two things. So I started like 10 years ago on this journey. I was still like a little boy. And a lot has passed since then. So today I work 100% with consciousness, and mostly I work with meditation and especially with breathwork. So I found out along my way that the breath is something amazing. It can take you, I think, virtually anywhere. I haven't found out like the limitations of breath work. So I'm still finding out that that's possible to go deeper. Sometimes it's possible to go deeper. Sometimes it's possible to go in another direction. So if I want to use breath work to work on my physical body, I can do it. If I want to use the breath work to heal my emotional body, I can do it. My spiritual body, I can do it. um, Yesterday, actually, I was with my brother. He's a dance teacher. He dances zouk. It's a Brazilian dance. And his partner, um, they were both having a class with me about breath work. So they want to integrate breath and dance. So you can use breath virtually to anything.
Possibilities are endless.
Yeah, possibilities are endless.
So how did you start out? You said you started out in like consciousness practices. Like what
Yeah,
did you start out in breath work, or like did you start out
yeah.
with the meditation side of things, or can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was my start was it was a little funny. I was a law student in my first week at the university, and then sat next to me in a sociology class a guy. He was older, I think like 40, 45, something like that. We did the activity we had to do, and after that, he looked at me and asked, do you have a place to live? I need a place to live. And I was looking, and I didn't know him. He was like a freshman as me. And I said, okay. Uh, I used to live a republic kind of thing where
Well,
students gather around. How do you say that in English?
like
Yeah.
a dorm, like in like on the campus?
Yeah, it was outside the campus, but it was just
Yeah,
students
like
from campus.
a college apartment type thing.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. And then you can live there, so you can come. And then he started living with me. Um, and then I didn't know that by the time I asked him to move in, but he worked his whole life with natural healing. So he started to introduce me to all sorts of things. So he would say like, "Henrique, have you ever heard about lucid dreaming?" And I was, no. Uh, Try this, try this, try this. And he would explain me just a little bit so I could do it. And then I would go at night and practice. And then I was, oh my gosh, what's that? And then the next week he was, have you ever heard about meditation? No, no, no. what's that? And he was like, try this, try this, try this. And I was, what? And then, have you ever heard about healing? Uh, energy healing with your hands? No, never heard about it. So try this, try this, try this. And then I was feeling like I was living in the movie Matrix, that everything was expanding, and oh shit, there's a whole another reality out there that I'm
Yeah.
not aware of. So that's how it started. He was from another city. He was from São Paulo. I live in Florianópolis. Um, and then he spent like 4 months here, and then he went back to São Paulo. It was like a kind of a master that showed up for me just to initiate me, and then he was, okay, now it's your turn. And the funny thing is that I was approved as also in a college in São Paulo, but I decided to go to Floripa. If I
And
decided
then,
to go, yeah, if I
yeah,
had decided to go to São Paulo, I would have never met him. It was really funny.
that's
So
crazy.
that's
Something
how
that
things started.
something I'm thinking of is like most people. I'm trying to think, did you grow up, what type of background did you grow up in? Were you like pretty open? Like were you raised were like not in like a religious background where it was kind of open minded? Because I feel like most people when they like hear something like, oh, have you ever heard of energy healing? Everyone I know would be like, oh, that I already know that's not true, so why would I even try it? That sort of thing. So like
Yeah.
what was there anything that caused you to be like open to that? Because I think that's a
Yes.
really valuable trait.
Yes. I think it's not a cultural background. I was actually raised in Portugal, in a very small town. It was kind of a village. So I would study with in a castle with nuns, right?
Yeah.
So it was really religious, and I was really into praying, stuff like that. Uh, Throughout my life, I was invited to be a priest, a father,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
many times. And um, so that's the religious background that I'm from. But in my family, they're open to things. So my father, in his early ages, he tried some things, but they never practiced anything at home. So we were just like doing Christian prayers.
Yeah.
But I always had one thought that it helped me a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And I think that's the real scientific thought that it is. I believe anything until it's proven wrong. Sometimes people do the opposite. Like,
Yeah, that's
I
what I was
only
thinking.
believe something if it's proven, but that's not the scientific thinking. That's just trash thinking. The scientific thinking, it's the opposite. I believe anything, I see something, I gotta investigate it. And I will assume it's true until I prove, okay, it's not true, or it's not this kind of
Yeah.
way.
I,
So
I that's what I
people
was
go,
thinking.
yeah. So people think, oh, I'm very scientific. I only believe in proven things. No, that's the opposite, my friend. That's the opposite. So a scientist sees something, he doesn't understand it, so he starts investigating. So this thought, it was really important for me. It drove me my whole life. So if you say to me, Henrique, there's unicorns in the Amazon rainforest, I'm gonna be like, whoa, awesome, Ethan, there's unicorns. So I gotta see them. So I'll try to see them. I'll experiment with that. So I'll have the experience, the direct experience. So after I have the direct experience, then I don't need to believe something. I just know. I just know
Yeah.
if it makes sense or not.
I approach things from like a really similar perspective. I don't necessarily think that it's like I'm gonna believe it until it's disproven, because for me, I don't know, it's like really similar, but instead of just saying like I'm gonna believe something, I say like I'm not gonna disbelieve something
Yeah.
like that's like if there's like energy healing for example, it's like I'm not going to say that's false until I've actually tried it and experienced that nothing happens when I do it or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, you know. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the same idea, right? But like I feel like that
Mm-hmm.
could be really valuable. Is just thinking like, oh, rebirthing technique, they're like, oh, it's just a breathing technique, like the breath isn't going to do anything, it's just breathing. Like how can that make you
Yeah.
heal deep emotional scars and have hallucination or whatever they
Yeah.
say it does. They're like, until you actually do it, there's no way, like saying that it's wrong is just saying that it's not valuable is just ignorant, because until you
Yes.
actually try it out for yourself, I think that's a good
Yes.
perspective to take.
Yeah, that's the perspective. And many times, the experience, to experience it for yourself, I think it's really crucial, because sometimes, like, it works for you, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, definitely.
For example, like aspirin, do you have like that medicine, aspirin?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
for headaches.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe for 80% of the people, it will handle headaches. For 10%, it will do nothing. And for the other 10%, it will give them headaches. So, what to believe? Don't believe it. Experience it, and then you know your reality.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good segue. Do you want to kind of give some context around the work that you do with the rebirthing breathing technique, or any type of breath work that you do with your clients, and kind of like, what is it? What does it do? What is it for? Why would someone want to do breathing technique?
Yeah. So,
And how is it different from holotropic breath work? Because I feel like that's a little bit
mhm,
more popularized version in America.
the holotropic breathwork.
Yep.
Yeah. So, how it all started. Um, so for me, it all started with this guy from São Paulo. He was already in São Paulo, and we kept in touch with via email. And one day he sent me an email. Have you ever heard about breathwork, rebirthing breathwork from Leonard Orr? So rebirthing breathwork was developed by Leonard Orr in the U.S. Um, he was working with mindset workshops uh, for money, stuff like that. And then he had an experience very interesting in his house. He was like in a bathtub, and he spent like 3 hours in there. And all of a sudden, he started to experience birth memories. He was feeling like he was going back to his birth again. And when he tried to move, he didn't have any strength to move. So he just stayed there until everything just passed. Um, and then he was really intrigued by it. Um, and when he went to give his workshop again, he said it to the audience. Oh, I had that experience, and then everyone in the audience was like, "What?" So let me have that experience as well. And then he said to, okay, you can do it like you go to your sleeping bag and you zip it. Your sleeping bag, just leave a little hole for your breathing, and just be there. Don't do anything. Just be there until you feel this agony, this urge to move, this urge to go away. When you feel it, don't move. Just keep there. Just keep in there. So you'll start triggering memories, you start triggering traumas and stuff like that. We can dive in deeper into why does that happen in a nervous system kind of approach. Later on, I understood that with polyvagal theory. Um, but at the time, Leonardo didn't know about that. He was just like experimenting. So actually, rebirthing breathwork, it started not with breath. It started with those experiences. And with time, they started to realize that after those experiences, those peak experiences, so the person would be there, seated still, and then it would go like up, an urge to leave, uh, And then he would keep there, and an experience would happen, a memory would come up, and then there would be a third phase of integration. And when they started to observe the breath, they observed that the breathing of these people was in a certain pattern. It was circular, it was calm, it was continuous.
Throughout the whole process, or just after
No,
they
no,
broke
at
through
the end. Yeah, after they broke through that
the
urgency
urge? Yeah,
barrier.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we call that moment urgency barrier. Okay, like in rebirthing breathwork, we call that moment of agony like urgency barrier.
In
So
does that happen during the actual breathwork process itself,
yes,
when you just
yes,
feel like you don't want to keep doing the circular breathing?
yes, you can, yes, definitely. So one of the main roles of the facilitator of the breathwork is to ensure that you go through that phase. So that's when the healing actually happens, because you're here, and then okay, life is good, blah, 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 blah. Then you start reaching like your traumas and your emotional wounds or your psychological wounds and everything. And when you start to experience that, it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant. So what's the natural reaction? The natural reaction is not to move forward, because if it's unpleasant, why would you keep going? So we back off.
Exactly.
We go back. So that's why we most of the times we never heal ourselves, because when you start going through that phase of unpleasantness, you go back. So if you keep going, you're going to go through that phase, and then you're going to come out in a different state. So you have resignified it, that trauma, that wound, that psychological wound, at a nervous system level, at a physical level, at an emotional level, at a psychological level. So the breath helps you to go through that way faster.
Yeah, definitely.
So you don't actually need the breath to do it. You can do it with anything. It's like you can go into a sleeping bag and just close yourself and just leave a hold so you can breathe, so you don't die suffocated, and things will start happening. So when you go through that process, that healing process, your breath changes and goes to that pattern. So Leonard Orr and those early practitioners, they started observing that pattern, and they had like an idea. Interesting. What if I start breathing this way, in a conscious way? Okay.
Yeah.
What will happen? What will happen? Will it trigger all of those healing and emotional responses or not? And they started doing it, and it worked. And it worked. So that was the beginning. So yeah.
Can you explain circular breathing? Because in our session that we did last week, I kind of noticed that it starts out, we can do like a little explanatory like practice, kind of like show what the pattern looks like. But
Yeah.
I think that holotropic breath work is usually forced in and out. This is how, tell me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of what the difference seems to be, is that holotropic breath work is like, it's circular breathing. So circular breathing, correct me if I'm wrong, is when you breathe in and out without stopping on the in breath or out breath. So therefore you're consistently breathing circularly over and over again without stopping.
Yes.
And
Perfect.
so holotropic breath work is kind of like, and it's just like forcefully in, forcefully out, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then rebirthing, it's kind of like you force it in and then you just relax. So it's like
yeah. It's still circular. It's a different pattern.
It's a different pattern.
Yeah, we can go Say.
Do you notice that like people kind of tend to do the more holotropic style at first? Because this is
Yeah.
kind of what I notice is like first when you try to forcefully like breathe, when you like take a lot of air in, it's almost more natural to just like force it all out, and not to just.
Yes.
And so like at the end of our session, I like really found that I was doing it and I was completely relaxing on the out breath. But when
Yes.
I started it, I almost wanted to just like hold the holotropic breathwork style.
Yes. Perfect. So a lot of things to talk about on that
Yeah.
topic. So that's definitely a tendency we have to force the breath out, to force the breath in, and to force the breath out, because we are actually addicted to control. So we want to control everything. We want to control our body functions. We want to control our emotions. We want to control our thoughts. Funny thing is, you just can't. You just can't control your thoughts. You have like 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
If you
Most
find
of them you have no idea. They were just passing through. So you don't have control over your emotions. We don't have it. So emotions are unexpected. They just happen. What you can do is to learn how emotions work, and then you have mastered your emotions. It's different from controlling your emotions. We can dive deeper into that after.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have anything else to say. Through the rebirthing technique, we can understand our emotions better.
Yeah, we can understand them. We can understand how they work in our body, how they work in our mind. So we can go through that. So we want to control everything, and that's when this breathing pattern happens. That I want to push in, and now I want to push out. And actually, life was not designed for that. So uh, I'll start with why breathwork is so important in my life. It will give a little more context. So, and I can start explaining the difference of rebirthing, holotropic breathwork, and how we breathe. Um, the first time I really felt alive in my life, it was after a rebirthing breathwork session. That was the first time I really felt, fuck, that's life. That's life, my friend. It's running through my veins. I remember to this day. I was breathing, and after the session, at the end, in the last phase, integration phase, I suddenly started to feel that I was breathing, but at the same time, the breath was breathing me. It was like, fuck, life is breathing me. Life is using my body. It was like a current of breath that was independent from my will. And it was so pleasant and so funny, I started laughing. I started laughing out loud. And when you start laughing, you stop breathing, right? Because you're laughing.
Well,
And the crazy thing was, the breath kept on going. That internal breath, that breath of, I call it breath of life, that breath of life was still going inside of me, even when I was laughing. And then I started laughing even louder. And I was, fuck, that's life, you know?
the
So,
there's a phrase for it. It's called I think some spiritual teachers call it the cosmic joke.
the cosmic joke. Yeah, kind of.
Laughing because yeah, you get it.
Yeah, you just realized it. Um, so that's the first time I really felt alive in my life. So before that, I would I would try to feel alive in many ways, and one of those ways was adrenaline. To have adrenaline. So I see many people in that pattern. So we try to do radical sports, or sometimes people do drugs, or sometimes people do like workaholic things, or emotional like relationship, strong emotional relationships, like not always in a good way. Sometimes abusive relationships with a partner, or actually with friends as well, or in the family. So we're trying all the time so hard to feel something, that we do all those things out of these not feeling alive, like this numbness that we have. So we try to poke ourselves until we feel something.
Do you think this could be related to the idea of like the illusion of separateness, and like we have this idea that we're kind of numbed by this idea of just like we're our separate bodies, like we're the ego.
Yeah.
It's like, and we're trying to do anything that we can to feel alive, to feel connected, almost to feel connected to something other than this finite body. And most people don't find it because it's not common in our culture. Like people try to find it through adrenaline, drugs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you think we could find it, we could almost through emotional, do you think that emotional healing and trauma is similar to that feeling of connection once you
Yes,
heal
absolutely.
yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. That's one of the patterns, like that's one of the things. Um, this feeling of disconnection, it's really strong. We're disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from anyone else, we're disconnected from nature. And what we don't realize is we actually are nature. We are actually are each other. So when you go to your breath, you realize that, because the same breath, you're there in the United States, I'm here in Brazil. At some point, the air that goes in my lungs right now, it's going to go through your lungs or someone else's.
Yeah.
It's the same air, it's the same life. So if you have a satellite and you see Earth, you can see that the sand from Sahara in Africa, it goes all the way in the Atlantic Sea and goes like setting down on an Amazon rainforest. So it's the same fucking sand, it's the same soil. So the air is the same thing. It's in all living beings. The air connects all of us. Plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, everything. So, and if you start to think, for example, our first lungs are not our lungs. It's the seas. So there's a little cyanobacteria, I don't know how it's called in English, diatomaceae or something like that, that produces most of the oxygen from the planet. There's bunches of them in the sea. So that's our first lung, you know?
Yeah.
So when I harm that lung, that external lung, I harm myself. It's hard to be happy. It's hard to be calm. It's hard to be loving, relaxing, compassionate when you're gasping for air, when you lack from air, when your lungs are not good. Like, for example, in COVID.
Yeah.
It hurts because you cannot breathe.
So I have a quick question that kind of branches off from this, but it kind of stays on the same topic. Is that so through rebirthing, there's a certain circular breathing technique, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that teach us a lot of different rebirthing people that are popular in the rebirthing breathing space and different breathwork spaces they say we're learning how to breathe consciously, like our normal breathing not conscious? Like what's different about it, or like what's like is there like a short technique you can do to get back into like a more conscious breathing, more aware of your breath? Is it like longer, deeper breaths, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, it depends. There's not like one thing to do. When you do breath work, we can think about two big exercises, two big like pillars. The first one is breath awareness. That's the passive aspect, the feminine aspect of the breath. I'm just observing my breath. I'm just aware of my breath. So if it's shallow, perfect, it is shallow. If it's deep, perfect, it's deep. So I just observe it. So that's one of the practices. And then there's the other practice that is conscious breathing. I imprint a certain pattern in my breath. That's the masculine aspect. That's the active aspect. So when you actually breathe in rebirthing, we say that the breath is our teacher. There's not like, oh, that's the right pattern to breathe. No, the breath is your teacher. Your own breath is your teacher. And let the breath guide you. So everything we do, all the tools we do, all the patterns we make, everything we do is just to facilitate to be in contact with the breath and be guided by it.
So it's not like trying to breathe a certain way. It's getting in tune with the natural breathing, yes. And then almost like intuitively knowing how to breathe when you get in touch with it.
Exactly. Perfect. So if I do certain conscious patterns, it will help me to be aware of my breath. So that's the practice, basically.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do a dance. So that's the dance between doing and being. So all the time we're like dancing that dance, even if you don't realize it. So you do something and then you just need to be. That the universe, the nature, your body, whatever you call it, does it for you. So we're always dancing like that. For example, when we eat, all we need to do is like, you can like put your food in your mouth, chew it, and swallow it. That's all you need to do. After that, like digesting your food, divide it into macro and micronutrients, spread those nutrients through your bloodstream into your cells, protein synthesis from your cells, and do all of that. No one in this world knows how to do that. Even though everybody does that every single day.
Except Wim Hof. No,
except Wim Hof. Yeah, except Wim Hof. It's really interesting. Wim Hof says the same dance. He says like, we're dancing the same dance.
I guess, is this technique similar to Wim Hof's technique?
Rebirthing breathwork?
Yeah, rebirthing.
Yeah, kind of. Wim brings it way more to the physical, so you can go into cold. So the part of it's called cold therapy. There's three main pillars from Wim Hof. The breath work is one of them. Cold exposure is another, and meditation mindset. It's the third one. So when I spent a whole week in Poland with Wim Hof, I think 2 years ago, training with him. And he brings the breath work into a level that's just, it's more a preparation for the eyes. In rebirthing breathwork, we tend to go deeper. But that's just the beginning with Wim Hof. That's what he brings out to his students and for the early students, because he really goes deep into breathwork. Actually, I've tried sometimes like DMT breathing. That's like a technique from Wim Hof. So it's super deep. So that's a thing. You can go into many layers with your breath. And sometimes you choose, I just want to go to this layer, for example. I just want to boost my immune system. Okay, that's it. I want to boost my immune system and heal my emotional trauma. Okay, that's it. I want to boost my immune system, heal my emotional trauma, and make it a spiritual practice. You can go like this. Oh, I want to use the breath to reach enlightenment. Oh, you can go like this. So many layers that you can go, and all of them, we do this dance, and between doing and being. So when we realize that, we realize that most of the work we don't do, actually. It's our body that does it for us. It's the universe that does it for us. So in our society, we are so addicted to doing that we try to do everything. So we do here, and we do here, and we don't dance. We do everything. So at the end of the day, we are tired.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like productivity culture and like the emphasis on getting shit done and being as successful as possible. That's only one side of the like it. We become out of balance very easily
Yeah,
if we only
totally,
focus on that. Not saying that it's
totally.
bad, saying
Yeah,
that it needs to be balanced with the other side of the
yes,
being side of things.
exactly, exactly.
Do you, do you see that being can? Do you think that being can happen at the same time as doing? So say I'm like working,
Yes,
like I can practice being as well and being aware of what or like is there like a different state of awareness, or how do you
no,
understand
not
conceptualize that?
necessarily, not necessarily. Yeah, you can do both at the same time. That's like let's say that's the ideal thing in a certain way.
So it's not just like on the meditation cushion I'm going to practice being. It's like
No,
I'm
no,
taking this
absolutely not.
mindfulness into everyday life.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Right now, you're being, for example, your cells are replicating right now. Your heart is pumping right now. Your brain is working right now. You're not doing anything of that. You're just being. The thing is, are you aware of that beingness or not? That's the difference, but you're being all the time. When we bring awareness to the being, that's when calmness and stuff like that happen. It's just a consequence, you know? So that's the thing. And the feeling of, in my experience, this feeling of really feeling alive comes from that realization. To feel it, like, damn, I just need to do something. Just a little bit, and I can be the rest of the time. Imagine like you're like in a highway driving a car. If you're driving the car, you cannot look at the view for too much long time, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna crash if you do it.
I've
So
tried. It's not good. You almost crash every time you do it.
yeah, that's not good, right? So you keep an eye on the road. But when you realize that, damn, I'm not driving. I'm on the other seat, so you can turn around and you can see the view, and see the view relaxed. That's when life happens. When we are at the driver's seat, we think that we are driving, so we just keep on looking the road, and life just goes by in this illusion that I'm driving. When you realize, okay, I'm not driving. It's an autonomous car. I just set like on the GPS where I want to go. So like this feeling of death, that we feel dead, we feel numb, I think comes from that illusion, that addiction to doing. And our breath reflects that. Our breath reflects that in two ways. The first, it's the one you said, like, my breathing is active, my breathe out is active. I'm doing all the effort all the time. I get tired from that, and the second thing is the breath. It's our direct way to feel this world. That's a hard word for us Brazilian guys. World. Yeah, it's kind of. Every time we want to stop feeling it, we stop our breath. It's automatic. So if you hurt yourself, like you're hammering something and then you go into your finger, first thing you do, and then you stop breathing because you don't want to feel the pain.
Yeah.
When you go into cold shower, first thing you do, stop breathing. When you like watching a terror movie and you get scared, first thing you do, and then you stop breathing. When people have panic attack or anxiety crisis, what they do, they go like this. And they cannot breathe. They stop breathing up here.
Yeah.
So every time we don't want to feel this world, we stop breathing. We stop breathing. So every time I have an emotional trauma, for example, an emotional wound, a psychological wound, it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant. So I try to stop to feel that, stop feeling that. So How do I do that? I stop breathing. The problem is it becomes a pattern. It becomes a pattern, and then I start to stop. I start to stop breathing. I start to stop breathing all the time. But the thing is, whenever we want to feel this world a little bit more, we breathe deeper. For example, when we are in love, how do we breathe? We breathe like this. You breathe deep. You're thinking about your loved one. You go like this. When you see a beautiful landscape, what do? When you feel relieved, like you just submitted a work you had to do to your boss, first thing you do, whew, I'm done. We breathe. You will breathe deeper. So if you develop that pattern to stop breathing because you don't want to feel the pain, you actually develop the same pattern and you stop feeling the pleasant things as well. That's one of the paradoxes from life. Life in this duality mode is painful. That's just a reality. You don't need to suffer with the pain. Your relationship with the pain can change, but it's painful. But at the same time that it's painful, it's also pleasurable. And it's exactly the same point to feel the pain and to feel the pleasure. And the funny thing is, you cannot choose just one of them. You got to choose both of them, or neither.
And we're proposing that you choose both and not neither.
Yeah. It really helps. If you want to get number, don't choose.
Choose wisely.
But you want to feel life, choose it. So.
Dark side or the light side?
Yeah, both of them. They exist. So after a while, that was actually one of the things, that realization was one of the things that really helped me in my path, in my emotional path, my spiritual path, to realize that.
Go ahead. Say it. Was just breathing deeper on a more consistent basis and understanding that? Yeah.
For example, actually, our body needs that. So it's an average. Every 5 minutes, our body needs to go like a deeper breath. Most of people that deeper breath goes unconscious. We can bring awareness to that, and we can do it like every minute. We can do it every 2 minutes. We can do it whenever we want to.
Yeah.
Just bring that consciousness makes a whole lot of difference.
100%.
Yeah.
So one thing that I was curious about is like a lot of these breath works talk about focusing on emotions, and like certain techniques, I was reading up on them and they were saying like you can cure your depression, you can help with anxiety, stress, fear, jealousy, any emotion that you can think of. It'll like help you tap into that. I found personally one of the things that I kind of overthought of, like one of the things I got stuck on was like, all right, which emotion am I feeling into right now? I need to heal like fear. So like, how do I heal fear? And it's like, one thing that I quickly realized, and what are your thoughts on this, is like, is it about trying to heal like fear, jealousy, whatever, trauma, or is it more just like or is that kind of, do you focus on healing as the main thing, or is healing something that just comes from like, I'm going to feel deeper into my emotions. I don't need to label them. Like, you don't even need to know what emotion you're feeling right now. You just have to feel deeply into it. And through that process, subsequently, you end up healing stuff. You end up like having all these benefits, but it's not from focusing on the benefits themselves, or do you approach it so differently?
Perfect. That's the way. That's the, like that wisdom changes absolutely everything. I want to draw something. I'm going to be right back, like 2 seconds.
Sounds good.
What's that?
So that's a glass of water.
I'm showing like a paper to Ethan.
So for people
and
not
asking,
for people listening audio only, there's a drawing of a cup of water.
yeah. So what's that?
It's water.
It's water. So that's the main response. It's water. And then I ask you, can you drink it?
No, you can't drink
The
that.
answer, it's not. And you cannot drink it because it's not water. It is actually a representation of water in a drawing. So I drew a cup, a really bad cup with H2O, indicating that's water. That's just a representation. That's not water. You cannot use that to.
What a good correlation be. So like that's like a drawing. That's not the water itself. So for emotions, it's like fear doesn't exist. Fear is just a thought. It's there's actually some emotion that you can feel, but that's just a label you put on it.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. So there's the representation and there's reality. Okay, so we as society are really addicted and attached to representation. For example, every time we think in words in our language. So every time you think in English. Every time I think in Portuguese. It's a complete different representation. So every time I'm thinking, I'm actually using a representation. I'm not seeing the world as it is. I'm not feeling the thing as it is. It's just a representation. So I'm trying to not be thirsty anymore, trying to drink a drawing of a cup of water. It doesn't work. So when we say, I'm feeling fear, okay, that's a thought. What I want to know is, what do you feel in your body? So you start looking into your body and you start realizing that actually fear, for me, for example, it's individual. Every person feels it different. For me, it can be like little butterflies in the stomach. It can be a heavy weight in my back. It can be a pain in the chest. It can be a scratch in the nose. I don't know. It can be anything. That's the feeling. That's the emotion. That's reality. If I label that as fear, that's a representation. And there's an example that I love it. That's about anxiety. So anxiety, how do you feel anxiety? Sometimes it's like butterflies in the stomach. People describe it as butterflies in the stomach, for example. So when you're like, imagine that you fear being in a stage talking to hundreds of people. So when you're backstage, about to go in, what do you feel? You may answer me that, oh, I'm feeling anxious. Okay, that's an interpretation. So, but what do you feel in your body? I am feeling butterflies in my stomach. Okay, perfect. So if you go to another situation, for example, you're about to go on a trip. It's your vacation. You're about to go in a trip, the trip of your dreams. A night before you go into the airplane, what do you feel? Oh, I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling excited to go to this trip. I've been dreaming with it for like the past 5 years. How do you feel excitement? And then you go to your body and you say to me, oh, I feel butterflies in the stomach. You feel the same shit as if you were at the backstage of about to speak to 100 people. If we measure like your hormones and stuff like that, we realize that excitement and anxiety feel the same in our body. It's the same hormones. The only difference is the representation I put on top of it. If I put a representation of that's anxiety because I'm about to go in a stage, That's how I will experience the butterflies in the stomach as anxiety. If I feel those butterflies about to go on a trip and I label that as excitement, that's how I will experience those butterflies. So my relationship with the real feeling, it depends on the representation that I have.
So I think we can branch off a couple different ways. So one, this could mean there's the idea that our thoughts create our reality. So it's like, depending how we label, depending what thought we have about the feeling will determine how we experience it, right?
As well, yes.
And then
that's one way.
That's one way to think about it. And then the other way was this is a thought that I just have. I don't know if you've thought about this before, is like, so based on that thought experiment that you just gave us, that would kind of make it seem like positive and negative does not exist. Like,
perfect. That's perfect. There's when I teach and etc., one of the things is there's no positive emotion, there's no negative emotion. There's just like pleasant and unpleasant emotions.
But even that, is that even a duality that does not exist? Like, I just label this as pleasant and unpleasant?
Yeah, in a certain level, yes.
I mean, I guess, but practically, there's still stuff that feels good and feels bad. So, I mean,
yes.
On a practical level,
yes, there's always that. So it's pleasant or unpleasant. It's not good or bad, it's just pleasant or unpleasant.
Another idea that I had to branch off of it was like, you can't you can't convey in language what an emotion. So like, based on what you said, like fear or excitement, it's like, what are you feeling? No matter what you say, it's not going to actually be a perfect representation of what you're actually feeling.
Never.
So therefore, in the breathwork practice, can we use that insight to go deeper and to be like, I'm not going to try to focus on fear. I'm just going to focus as deeply as possible on whatever I'm feeling, because I can't label that.
Definitely, yes. If you try to label all of your emotions, you're going to be crazy. For two reasons. One of them is you're going to feel like paradoxical or opposite emotions. You can feel love towards something and anger towards something or towards someone at the same time. I'm not saying like, okay, this week I love my partner, next week I hate my partner. No, you can feel love and hate at the same time. You can feel both at the same time. You can feel like happiness and you can feel sadness at the same time. It's very funny because many times people ask me, "Oh, Hiki, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you doing?" And then I start, like, for the intimate friends, I start like going into layers of things. So I say, okay, on a superficial level of my mind, I'm feeling this way. On a deeper level, I'm feeling, for example, in a superficial way, I'm feeling sad because that didn't happen as planned. On a deeper level, I'm feeling calm because I realize there's no rush. On a deeper level, I'm feeling a lot of love because I'm being really, really patient with myself, and that's awesome. So I'm feeling love and I'm feeling
all
sadness
at the same time.
and all at the same time. And that's okay. And if I try to label, and if I try to, okay, I must feel something, just one thing, I'm going to be crazy, because you're not going to just feel one thing.
And that even goes into the idea that you can't label your experience as any one thing. No. I guess you could almost go further on that idea in saying, like, the map is not the territory, is the popular saying. Yes. So it's kind of like believing, like a belief. What is a belief? It's a thought that you think is true, right? So it's like, even like a belief, saying like, I believe in this, it means, well, what is that? That whatever you believe in, that's just a thought that you think is true. I remember one of the deep spiritual books I read called Falling into Grace. I think it was by Adyashanti. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but basically, I expected to read like a book about spirituality, and that the first 2 chapters were about how, like, the Buddha says that life is suffering. My practice will help you get rid of suffering. The spiritual teacher said the reason we like, to elaborate on that, the reason we suffer is because we think that our thoughts are true.
Yeah.
And that's deep. That I just made that connection, so I thought that would be interesting to share. Like, all belief, all of this stuff is just thinking that our thoughts are true. All thinking, trying to like label our emotion is thinking that our thought that whatever we're experiencing is this certain label. That's like what causes suffering.
That's what causes suffering. Perfect. So when we realize that, like, we don't need to label, we can go way deeper because we can just feel it. And one thing is, on that saying about thoughts, it's, do you remember, like, in the medieval Europe, that was like the figure of the bozo of the court, like the clown of the court that was joking around all the time? How do you say that in English?
The
Joker.
The Joker, the Chester, the clown, or something.
Yeah, that way. That's actually a really, really powerful archetype. Its primary function was to ground the king. So the king archetype starts to give directions and start to give structure to his kingdom, right? And many times, the king would start to take himself too seriously. But the king is a person as well. The king archetype, the king energy is just like an archetype that comes in and goes out. So the primary job of the Joker, the Chester, was to mock of the certainty of the king. So he would start to question if his thoughts had to be taken that seriously. If his emotions had to be taken that seriously. And that makes a lot of difference, because when you realize that not all of your thoughts, not all of your emotions, you need to take them seriously. Not all of them. Many of them will just rise and pass away.
Yeah.
Many of them, they're just, you don't need to interact with them. You just don't need to. Sometimes, some of them, you want to interact with. Some thoughts, you want to go deeper into them. Some emotions, you want to go deep into them. But many times, you just realize that I don't need to do anything about it. I just need to be. They will just pass away.
Can this relate to the idea of like self-esteem, self-worth? So if you have a thought, that degrades your self-esteem, when you start taking that seriously, that's when it starts having an effect on you. So just like, don't take it seriously.
Yeah, I cannot put that like, okay, always do that. The practice is always like to know when to balance that.
Yeah, there's no direct way, like, this is what thought you should take seriously, this is what one you shouldn't. It's more intuitive and kind of understanding that personally.
Yes, it's completely different. For example, working as a therapist, for example, one of the things I say is I'm a mirror. So sometimes I'm going to say to two of my clients two totally opposite things. For one of my clients, I can say, okay, get up from your couch and like work 1 week of pure work. For another one, I'm going to say the opposite. Stop working, sit your butt on the couch and do nothing for a week. And why is that? Because imagine that you want to go to Mexico. What's the direction to go to Mexico? It depends on where you are. If I want to go to Mexico, I must go north. If you want to go to Mexico, you must go south.
Yeah, I was about to say south or southwest, but then you got me there. You got me.
Yeah, I gotta go north. So how
It's
can I say
relative.
like, yeah, it's relative because it depends on where you are and where you want to get. So it's hard to say like, don't take all of your thoughts so seriously. Sometimes you gotta do it. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah,
That's wisdom, you know? When to
100%.
know, that's wisdom. When you know, okay, this thought I'm going to take it serious. I'm going to go deeper into that. That's a shadow of mine. If I work in here, good things are going to come out. Or sometimes, okay, that's just like a paranoia of mine. And if I go that path, it's just going to go a rabbit hole and it's going to be infinite. I'm going to just hurt myself.
A lot of
It's not
times
going
it's
to,
based on experience too. It's like I've been there before. Now I
yeah,
understand.
yeah, now I understand. I don't need to go there again, for example. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
So there's not an answer, but that's something to be aware of. You don't need to interact with everything. You don't need to take everything so seriously.
And a lot of
So
times, yeah, no, I don't know where I was going with that. I was kind of just thinking like a lot of times after you do this breathing technique, you kind of get into your emotions and then you dive into it, like whatever's causing the emotion. You can't, that's just like surface level. It's just like a thought that's causing like an emotion. I don't know. That could be the case. You dive into it, you experience it, and then next time you experience that thought, you're like, I know where this leads. Why would I take it
yes,
as true?
yeah,
So
perfect.
I kind of want to take this into a slightly different direction.
Yeah,
A common problem I see in this process of healing, trauma work, shadow work, whatever you want to call it, emotional work, is the feeling of inadequacy. Like, I have this shadow. This shadow is bad. I'm not going to be happy
yeah,
until I completely overcome my shadow and I
yeah,
get back to this state of connection, wherever you want to go. You've talked a little bit about this in the past. Like,
yes,
how, like, it's, I guess my question is like, people have heard this. I heard this like 4 years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, like don't like put off your happiness until the future. Like, don't think that you're inadequate until you like don't think that you shouldn't be happy until you get XYZ, until you make this much money, until, and like that's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then it's like it's really hard to actually implement it. Do you have any insights on how do we actually embody this idea of
yeah,
I'm already whole, I'm not
yeah,
inadequate, this work is helping me become more connected, do all these different things, but that does not mean that I'm inadequate
yeah,
until I finish this work or until I get somewhere else that
yes,
other than where I'm at.
yes, yeah, perfect, perfect. That's sweet, spot on. Um, um, I think that's the first time I was in this healing world, and there's like this mindset of healing that we need to be healed from something, that we are imperfect, we're inadequate at some level, that we need to fix ourselves. And the thing is, you go to that. You may start with that because you may start wanting to feel better. That's a common motivation. I want to feel better. I'm doing this healing work to feel better. I want to feel good. Um, you can go that path. After a while, you start realizing that it never fucking stops. It never fucking stops. So there's always another layer to work on. There's always another layer to work on. Actually, our great masters, for example, Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tse, they all said the same thing. There's always another layer. So it's not about healing, it's about changing the relationship you have with yourself and the world. So when you're feeling bad, how's your relationship when you're feeling bad? How's your relationship with you? You criticize yourself, you blame yourself, you get angry with yourself, or you are understanding with yourself, you're compassionate with yourself, you love yourself, even though I'm feeling anger right now, even though I'm feeling jealousy right now. Can you love yourself for feeling jealous?
That's
Can you love yourself for being angry? So
so.
because the truth, say.
Would you say that like the shadow, the trauma,
Yeah.
is when we have a bad relationship to these baseline emotions? So like we have like
Yeah, it's a
jealousy,
different thing.
anger, like when like these are just normal emotions, like you're not gonna heal yourself and never have these emotions again. But the trauma is when we develop some sort of like fixation or some sort of like repulsion for to these emotions.
Yeah. So there's two. It's a little bit technical right now. So let me think. How can I explain it? So there's this relationship thing. So how's your relationship with unpleasant feelings and with pleasant feelings? Unpleasant sensations, pleasant sensations, right? You want to be centered, because when you're centered, it feels good. So you start to do like a healing practice, and after the healing process, you're healed from your trauma, or you're healed from your emotional wound at some point, at some level, and then you're centered, you're feeling good. Okay? It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time until you get off track, until you're not centered anymore. It's just a matter of time. Okay? Sometimes that time can be as long as 10 years. It can be as long as 2 years. It can be as long as a week. It can be as long as an hour. It can be as long as a minute. But one thing is true. You're going to get off track. So this whole work is about to realize when you got off track. How fast can you realize that? How fast can you be aware of that? And then how fast can you go back to your track? And the most important thing, how do you treat yourself during that process of getting off track and going back? Okay? Do you treat yourself with blame, criticism, anger? Like, fuck, I'm not disciplined. Fuck, I'm imperfect. I'm inadequate because I did that healing. I thought that I had healed it a deeper root. I really felt it. I really felt good, and now I'm feeling maybe the same feeling again, or maybe another feeling. And oh, I thought I was enlightened already, and now I'm feeling this and that. Do you treat yourself like criticizing, like that? Or do you treat yourself with compassion, with love, with understanding that, okay, it's okay to feel that. It's okay to get off track. That's normal. Everything in nature has a balance, but that balance, it's not static. That balance is dynamic. Balance in nature is dynamic. Why would you think that your balance would be static? It doesn't make sense. Your nature. So, do I treat myself with compassion during that process? And do I treat myself with strong determination to go back? That's also important. So we have like two opposing forces. One of them, that's okay, Ethan. That's okay to get off track. And there's another force. Now, let's get back. You know, the Buddha, when it's a tale of his enlightenment, it will help understand that. He sat next to the Bodhi tree, and he was like meditating, and he said to him, we say that he sat in strong determination. He said, I'm not going to move until I reach enlightenment. Even if my body dies, that's it. So he was like really strong in there. So he was not reaching enlightenment in that way. And then there was a musician passing by, and he was like the string. He was tuning the string of his guitar, for example, and he like, I don't know how to say that in English. He just
Twisted it.
turned. He
Yeah.
twisted too much, and
Yep.
when he twisted too much, the string got broken. Then Buddha realized, fuck, that's it. If I press it too much, if I twist it too much, I break. If I soften too much, the string doesn't make a sound. So when's that balance? Where's that balance? You see?
Doing
So
being, right?
yeah, that's doing being. Perfect. So you gotta be, most of the time, be compassionate to yourself and do something to go back on track. So when you realize that you're going to get off track at some point, you start changing the relationship with healing, because you realize it's not about healing. I don't want to be perfect, because you realize you already are perfect as you are. You just need to know how this works, how this mind works, how this body works. So if we look at those great masters, Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tse, for example, they all had their problems, but they were enlightened. Jesus had emotional problems. If you go to the Bible, there's like some passages that he like gets a burst of anger and starts like kicking everything.
So I have a question for you. I think a common response would be, or a common thought, I've definitely had this before. It's like, all right, if I'm already perfect, why would I do any emotional work in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And then that's the second thing. Because it's good.
So like,
because it's good, you know.
Elaborate.
Yeah. So when you start changing the relationship with yourself and changing the relationship with the world, healing, trauma healing, emotional healing starts happening as a consequence. For example, because you stop reacting and you start acting. Imagine the following situation. Okay, you're in a room that's really, really, really hot. Really hot. That room is really, really hot, and then you start reacting to that heat, and you start moving, and you start like, oh my gosh, that's too hot, and you start like screaming, and you start like making a show out of it, and then because you're so entertained on that pain of the hotness and stuff like that, that you don't realize that there's a window right next to you that you can open up and get fresh air. When you stop reacting and you start changing the relationship, you're in the same room, you start feeling that heat. It's really, really hot. But you know, okay, it's really hot. Okay, I'm not gonna die from this. That's the stuff that's going on. And then you have the calmness to look at your side and see, oh, there's a window. Now, what can I do? Should I sit there and stay there in this hotness? Or I want a little bit of cold and I can open up the window. Yeah, I can open up the window. It's like that.
So to put this analogy, to go further with this analogy, it's almost like our emotional trauma is something that happens to us. It's not something, it's just like something that happens as a part of growing up. The same way, like you're in the room, you're not the one that made the room so hot in the first place.
You're not.
It's just hot. Yeah. There's nothing wrong, like back to the inadequacy thing, there's nothing wrong about the room being hot. It just is. Perfect. And it's like, it's perfect as it is, but then you open the window and that's your shadow. Like, that's shadow work, is opening the window. And that's like it's, I'm trying to get away from the pleasant, unpleasant thing, but it's almost like
Sometimes it's
we
simple as
have
that.
this inherent unpleasant feeling because of the shadow. And because we have this inherent unpleasant feeling, this doesn't mean that it's wrong to have it or that you're
Yes.
imperfect because you have this unpleasant
Yes.
feeling.
Yes.
In that shadow work helps you get rid of some of these unpleasant emotions, like not the
Yeah.
emotions themselves, right? It's like
Yes.
I'm still gonna
It's
feel the
still gonna be
emotions.
hot. Yeah.
If there's just an extra layer on top of the emotions that we
Yes.
don't even need, right?
Yes. That's perfect. That's the perfect thing. For example, I was working with a client some weeks ago. Um, in the first session, he was like really, really in pain because he had some thoughts, and those thoughts were he wanted his father to be dead. He wished the death of his father. Okay, so he was feeling that he didn't want his father anymore. His father was he's alive. He has Alzheimer's disease, so it's a really complicated situation. They did not have a good relationship throughout life. It was a good relationship, but a difficult one, and it's really really hard for him. So many times he's wishing his father to die. He's wishing his father to death. Um, but that's something that he's feeling. But on top of that, he was blaming himself for thinking that and for feeling that.
Got it. So
And when you realize it's okay to feel that, it's okay to think that, it doesn't make you a bad person. That's okay, that's natural. That's when you start understanding how emotions work. So you don't have to suffer for the thought of wanting to, for the thought of I'm a bad person. And when you realize that, like 80% of the pain just goes away. So now you have 20% of the pain. And now you can deal with 20% of the pain. It's way easier to deal with that.
that's would you say that like that 80-20, it's almost like there's some pain, but it's maximized like tenfold
Yeah.
because, and so the emotional work can help a ton because it's not going to get rid of that initial pain. It's going to get rid of all the
Yes.
80% of the
Perfect. Perfect.
unnecessary stuff.
And that's extremely necessary because if you're hoping to like that 20% that's real, that 20% is real, that's real pain, that's real emotional pain. If you're expecting to make it zero, you're gonna suffer like the 80% all the way till zero. Funny fact is, in those 10 years of experience, I've noticed that there's some pains, some traumas that you cannot heal 100%. You can just like heal it to a point that's manageable, that you can manage your trauma, that you can manage your emotional wound, that you can manage your shadow. So if you think that you need to heal that 100%, you're still gonna like, and you have 1%, you're going to suffer 81%.
And once you get rid of the idea, then you suffer 1%.
Then you suffer just 1%, and then you realize that maybe I don't even know. I don't even need to go to the 1% because I can handle 20%, and the work is already done.
Interesting.
You know,
Yeah.
because we do two things. One of them is to reduce our pain. That's one way to work. The second one is to increase our resistance to pain. When we change the relationship to pain, we change it. So when you realize, for example, at a physical level, that when you run, it's painful at some point. The next day, your muscles, you have muscle pain, you have muscle pain, and that's good. That's okay. You don't suffer because of that pain. You actually enjoy a little bit that pain. It's kind of the same thing. Kind of the same thing. So emotional and trauma and shadow work, it works it works that way. You know, when you realize, okay, I need first of everything, change my relationship too. Okay, it's okay to feel, to have this shadow. I didn't choose to be in that hot room, and that's okay. When I was a little child, that's how I handled my trauma. That's how I handled my experience. Because explain a little bit of trauma, a little bit of context on trauma when I say that. When I say trauma in this context, it's really broad, in a really broad sense. It can be like really painful situations like abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, death, and stuff like that. It can be something really, really simple as you asked for ice cream to your father and he said no. And ice cream for a child is like God. So you had God denied for you. That's a big trauma.
So there, I read about this too. It's like trauma is perceived as being like these big like abuse and like
not
all these
necessarily, yeah.
heavy, like super heavy things. In reality, everyone has trauma, right?
Everyone has trauma.
Everyone has to some degree. Some people have more degrees than others, but
yes.
Everyone has trauma.
Yes, perfect. Because trauma is not characterized by the incident itself, but how you handle the incident. And now we go to polyvagal theory and a little bit of nervous system, autonomous nervous system. So to feel trauma, that's okay. There's a big situation that's harmful for you. We as mammals, what do? We activate this nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, the sympathetic part. So run or flight. Run or fight. Yeah. After the danger is gone, the mammals go through a healing process. That's the activation or the ventral part of your of your autonomous nervous system. You go into a ventral state or parasympathetic state. When mammals go through that, for example, imagine a deer that it's been hunted. After the danger is gone, he starts shaking really bad. When he's shaking, when the deer is shaking, he's like healing the incident. He's healing the trauma. Okay, we don't have that opportunity as human beings most of the time, because in order to feel that ventral state again and to heal that incident, we need to feel safe. We need to feel safe. But one thing is physical safety. Another thing is emotional safety. So when we are little children, most of the times when we feel this emotional danger, it is caused by our fathers or parents. But our parents are secure place. But it's the same secure place that was the danger. So I'm never really secure because I was 5 minutes ago is in danger. So I don't really have a place to heal myself. That's when trauma happens. When trauma sticks to your body. You didn't have that moment to process the incident, the traumatizing incident. And that happens.
And what does processing the incident look like?
It can look like
probably many different things, but
many
like
different, many
not
different
feeling
ways.
into it, like repressing that, like it's like a negative feeling, and then you're like, I don't want to feel that, and so you never like let yourself
suppressing their survival patterns. It's a way to shut down the sensation, the unpleasant sensation, and everything. That's one of the things that actually causes trauma. So sometimes it can go like, for example, as catharsis. So you start crying, or you start laughing, or start something like that. Sometimes it can be as smooth as just breathing. When we really breathe like really deep, what happens is we activate our nervous system again. So all this trauma is accumulated in our nervous system, it's accumulated in our bodies. So when you start breathing, what happens is you trigger those traumas, those points of emotional pain and psychological pain, and they start to that's just energy, right? So you can think of your nervous system as an electric system. So emotions are just like a charge in that system. So the charges are running through your body, and when you keep breathing, you activate your ventral state. And when you activate your ventral state, at the same time that you're activating your sympathetic nervous system, you have this special place where trauma starts being healed. Because your body understands again that you're safe. That you're safe. That's when healing happens.
So
that's when healing happens.
We can get to this feeling of safety through the breath work.
It's one way. It's one really powerful way. Really powerful way.
Definitely.
You can go like through meditation, for example, through other practices, shamanic practices as well. You can go like, sometimes it's just like a conversation. Sometimes you just need to have a conversation with your mother, and she may hug you at the end. And that hug can trigger something.
Yeah. I think
sometimes it's simple as that.
One question I had, which is kind of like, I don't know if it's like a limiting belief on this thing. Maybe it's something that my mind is using as a way to like say, don't face this. But it's like, how do you know if it's healed or not? Should it be obvious if it's like, I feel less pain? Or I feel like when I do like the breathing technique, I like go deep into my emotions. And then at the end, I'm like, well, did I heal anything? Did I not? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you don't need to know. Maybe you don't need to know. Maybe it's not about the result. Okay, many times it's about the path itself, who you become on that path of trying to heal. Because maybe you can start feeling like really good, like, okay, I really felt it, I healed it, and 5 years later you encounter a new layer of that, the same issue. It worked for 5 years. Did it work for 5 years, or it never really worked? Doesn't matter. You lived better for 5 years. Now you encounter that again. But now, it's the second time you're going through that same process. Now you know that's okay to feel it. Now your relationship to that feeling is completely changed. Now you know that you can breathe through it. And that's it. So actually, you'll never know.
You'll never know if you heal fully, or
no,
if you heal.
Yeah, it's not math. It's not math. And that's something that I've been observing with my clients. Especially at the beginning, I was really hooked into, okay, I gotta see those catharses, because catharses are a way to measure that it's working.
And explain, I feel like catharsis is not a common term. Explain catharsis for the listeners.
Yeah, catharsis is in the healing process, it's a reaction from the healing process that looks like that is going south way, but it's going right. For example, at a physical level, it's easier to understand. For example, imagine that you have a lot of toxins, and they are stored in your cells, for example, okay, in fat cells or whatever. When you start like detoxing yourself, what happens is those cells like start to expel those toxins again in your bloodstream. When they do that, you start feeling sick again, because the toxins are in your bloodstream. So, but this time, because you're in this place of detoxing, it's a safe place, a physical safe place. Your body has a chance to get rid of that through your lymphatic system. So you have like this period where you feel intoxicated, and then you really get rid of those toxins. So that moment is a catharsis process. Emotional thing is the same thing. So emotions are stored in the body, so they start going through the body again, and then you get rid of them. So at this moment, at this peak, is like a catharsis process.
It's like a peak, a spike. It's like where you feel it way more deeply, and it's super powerful. But then through going through that experience, you end up healing it in some way.
Yes, right? Exactly.
So one other thought is like, you talked about how you can't ever heal fully. It's a continuous process. You never get to the end. Is this also attributed to like, there's a certain amount of stuff to heal in your body, but through whatever capacity, you said you build up like a resistance. What did you say? You said you increase your resistance to pain through this process. And that's how I attribute that. I kind of attribute that to like, we can only feel so much pain at a time. Through doing the work, going deeper in the work is being able to feel more of it, right?
Yeah, it can go like that. You don't need to feel it all the same time.
Yeah, like there's no way if you try to feel it all at one time, you would be like, I can't handle it. It's too much.
Yes. Yeah, you can re-traumatize yourself. That's actually a real danger. So every time you're going to a therapy process, in a healing process, or even in an enlightenment process or whatever, there's a chance to re-traumatization. So when does the healing happens? The healing happens in that sweet spot between activating your sympathetic nervous system and activating your ventral system. That's the feeling safe, the parasympathetic system. So both of them got to be activated at the same amount. That's when healing happens. If you activate too much your sympathetic and your ventral state is too weak, you cannot handle that. You're just going to experience the trauma again.
Yeah.
You know?
So you just ease into it. To combat that, you just make sure that you're not trying to take on too much at once.
Yes, exactly. So there's two variables that we work on. One of them is to feel, to be comfortable, to be equanimous with the situation. So increase your resistance to pain, for example, so you can activate your ventral system easier. We don't process everything at the same time because it may be too much. And that depends from person to person. That it goes back to the previous question. Like at the beginning, I was like, I really wanted to see catharsis from my clients. That was a reassurance for me and for the client that it was working. Okay, it's working. Look at that. How it's not working. I'm all like in tetany doing breath work and I'm crying, and I'm laughing, and I don't feel my body. And again, I feel it really cold and then really hot. Something must be going on. So it's not about the show, you know? It's about how do you live your life after that? How do you integrate that in your life?
I guess
that's the stuff, you know?
Yeah. We're about at like, I think, an hour and a half. So I think I want to end it off with this one question. I guess maybe at the end, or I guess like my main like heavy conceptual question is, what does the integration phase of the breathwork process look like, or of the healing process? What does it mean to integrate into integration?
Yeah, integration. How can I? It can have many phases, integration, but it's the period where your body, your mind, your emotions need a little bit of rest. So you can think about it as a digestion process. So after you eat a meal, you have lunch, you need to digest in order to eat again. So eating is like doing another healing process. If you just go through process after process after process, you're eating all the time, you're gonna get sick. Integrate first,
Yep.
Integrate first. So how can you integrate? It really depends. You can do light breath work, for example. You can use breath work to integrate as well. After a breathwork session, there's the third phase is the integration phase. And when you observe your breath, when you're aware of your breath, you'll see that your breath is naturally continuous. It doesn't have those stops, those pauses. It's natural. The inhale is naturally active, and the exhale is naturally passive. So you're doing the dance between doing and being. You feel calmness. You feel relaxed. Maybe you don't even feel that you need to move. Sometimes you need to move, and then you move, and then you realize that everything's okay. You take your time. So that integration, it's really it's really different from time to time, for example.
What does like not integrating look like? If I was like just did the breath work and then like what would it look like to not integrate it, if that makes sense?
To not integrate it,
it's trying to do a session right away, or just pushing it out and not actually absorbing, or like yeah.
Sometimes you have like that hunger to more and more and more and more. So many times less is more, so you go through that phase of your breath is really crazy, and it's really crazy stuff going on with your body right now, and then you start relaxing, you start integrating naturally. Your body goes to that moment, your breath goes to that moment, but then you come with your mind and I want to go deeper, I want to heal a little bit more, and then you disconnect again from your body and your breath to go to that healing place. So that's why we say like the breath is your teacher. The breath is your teacher. If at some point your breath is telling you to stop and relax your breathing, stop and relax your breathing. Let the breath heal you. Let the breath take care of you. You don't need to do anything more. Your job is done. It's okay. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's, for example, you just had a session, or you had a breakthrough, or something like that, and then you start like, for example, you can start evaluating like, was it true? Was it not true? Was it 100%? Was not 100%? And you start with your mind again. Was that enough? Was or not? If I really healed that trauma, I should be feeling way different right now.
Yeah, definitely. I've experienced that one.
I should be feeling really different right now. I should be feeling like I'm in heaven, and I'm not feeling it. So something must be wrong. So relax.
Yeah, it's like you finish it, and it's like you'll do a breathwork session, and then it's like, shouldn't I be feeling better? I just healed my trauma. Like, why am I not feeling better? I feel the same as before I started. Or like you feel better, like it's like the post breathwork high. It's just like you're like riding high, then you come down, and then like that later that day or the next day, I'm like, I feel the exact same. Why did I even do it? Like I should.
Yeah. And sometimes I like to do some analogies, because they're actually not analogies, but with our physical body. So our physical body works in the same way as emotional body, and our mental body, our energetic and spiritual body. Not in the same way, but it's similar to in many points. Man, you gotta eat every single day. You gotta eat every day.
Yeah.
You feel hunger right now, and then you have lunch. In a few hours, you're gonna feel hunger again. Don't worry about it. Just eat. you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you realize, oh, I can go a day without eating. I can fast. I don't need to eat every time I feel hunger, you know? And then you starting to be free from your hunger. Will you stop eating? Maybe you can live just from prana. But at some point you realize, though, oh, eating is good. It's pleasant. So I can eat. I'm free to eat. I just don't need to eat every time I feel hunger. Now I eat for pleasure, not for necessity anymore. So the same thing with our emotions. Same thing with our thoughts.
So is that explain the analogy further, like with our emotions, we become attached to them and we do them like unconsciously. Once we start to work on them, we realize that, I'm trying to, where are you going with that
For
analogy?
example, imagine that you're healing your anger problems. So you do a breath work, and then, okay, now I'm healed from my anger. And the next day you feel the anger again. Oh, I'm the same. But then you realize the anger is the hunger from your physical body. You just need to work on your anger again. Breathe through your anger again. Again. At some point, when you realize that, you start changing the relationship with the anger. You'll observe that the anger is the hunger, and then you don't need to eat. You don't need to react to that hunger all the time. And then you start realizing, okay, I can feel this anger, but I don't need to react to this anger. And then you start fasting from anger.
I guess something more personally, I'm trying to like figure out how to actually do this. So like same thing would go with like anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. So it's like, oh, I feel sadness. I don't need to. Oh, no, that makes so much more sense. No, it's not like, all right, I feel sadness. I don't need to blame myself and feel shame and like be super mad that I'm feeling sad. I can just experience it without like, and then like, how would that go into this analogy? Like, I can continue to work on it and my relationship with it changes. And that's why sadness turns into depression, stress turns into anxiety when we layer stuff on top of those, right?
Yes, perfect.
And so to heal depression, anxiety, these super deep conditions that are plaguing so many people in every country, is to one of the ways to go about it is to, let me think, is to focus. You see where I'm going with this, right?
Yes.
It's to change our relationship to it, like we talked about earlier.
Yes.
It's to not, or with the same analogy, is to continue to focus on the sadness, all these different things, without feeling that it's wrong to feel it, or getting mad that we didn't heal it when we tried, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
That's
perfect. That's perfect. And keep walking. That's the thing. Keep walking.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep walking. Johnny Walker. Keep walking. Just keep walking.
It almost feels like insanity at times, not gonna lie. Like, so this is kind of personal, but like, I went through a phase in my life where I never got diagnosed or anything, but I could tell I was like in a state of depression, right?
Yeah.
And so depression is like when it's almost like I would get this peak of like, oh, this is such a cool idea. I'm going to go start a podcast. I'm going to go start a blog. This is so cool. I'm going to be so successful. And then something triggers it in it, like a sadness. And you're like, why am I sad? And then you stop doing, this is kind of, I was talking in third person, but like I would stop doing what I'm passionate about. And then I'd get mad that I stopped. And then it would just be a spiral. And then you get back on and you're like, man, I'm so passionate again. Why was I like sad the other day? Why was I like not like depressed and I didn't want to do it? And it's kind of like this disconnect. There's like, it's almost like one part of me is like this depression, one part is not. And it's like, what was that depression like part of me doing? Like, I'm so passionate right now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell is that? And I think one part of that, tell me if have you heard this technique before? So there's the 3-2-1 method by Ken Wilber. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've heard of that. I feel
Yes.
like that could relate here, because it's like when we blame ourselves, when we do all these things, we are pushing the sadness, and we're like into the third person. We're saying, oh, I was sad. Why? Like, this sadness is like
Mm-hmm.
the demon. This is the bad thing. Like it's an it. Like, this sadness,
Mm-hmm.
my seeing myself as sad is like, oh, that's completely separate. Now I'm like not sad. So like, what was that part of me doing that it was sad? And sometimes shadow work and healing our trauma back to where we started was like, is saying, is not whenever sadness shows up, or whenever stress, whenever any of these anger shows up, it's not like saying, this is bad, I can't feel this, like push that away, like I need to feel good. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I am angry.
Mm-hmm.
Not like this is bad, this is a third person thing. It's like, this is something that's happening, I am angry, and then let it
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Exactly. You're angry. Feel the anger. Where's the
Feel
anger
it.
in your body? Yeah. Feel
Feel
it.
the
Don't
emotion.
don't don't just keep it in your mind.
And that,
Feel it in your body.
like we talked about in the beginning, you said this breath work helps you. I'm trying to take it full circle here, then we can wrap it
Yeah.
up. Is like, you said this breath work makes you feel alive, right?
Yes.
It
It makes
it
you feel
makes
more.
it makes you feel more. It's the same idea. Just feel the emotion. This breath work
Just feel
helps you
it.
feel it, and through actually feeling it, we're able to,
The charge dissipates.
it dissipates. We're able
Yeah.
to
The
feel the
energy
hot.
charge dissipates. Yeah.
It doesn't, if we repress it, it kind of just stays there in the background, and it kind of makes us
Yes.
numb, because we're trying to numb it constantly. And so
Yes.
then we end
Perfect.
up numbing both the positive and the negative when we push these emotions away.
Perfect.
When we feel it and it sucks, but I'm angry, I'm sad, whatever. And then it goes away, and then I'm feeling fine again. And then even the positives are higher.
Yes, the positives are higher, and the positives are going to go away as well.
They're gonna go away if you repress it, right? Is that what you just said?
The positives, no, if you just allow it, the positives are going to show up and go away as well.
Oh yeah, that's a big problem too. It's like
Yeah, you get
feeling
attached to
positive.
those. Yeah, that's positive. That's good. I need to be positive all the time. No, forget about it. They're going to go away.
There's a lot of, I think,
They're going
Buddhist
to go away.
ideas. There's a couple Buddhist ideas of like, what was it? It's like, I'm so like, this is really unpleasant, it shall pass. This is really pleasant, this is great, it too shall pass.
Yeah,
Like, that's like
that's called,
equanimity.
yeah, that's called anicca. Anicca, that's impermanence. So you're observing, you're contemplating impermanence with an equanimous mind. You're not, what does it mean to have an equanimous mind? Not to be attached to the pleasant feeling, and not to have aversion to the negative feeling. You're not craving the positive. You're not avoiding the negative. You're just experiencing both of them.
Damn, we're getting deep into the core,
Yeah.
the core principles of Buddhism. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
realize how that relates to this. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
it's also like the desire thing, craving and desire. So like, a lot of the idea in Buddhism is like, desire creates suffering, craving creates
Craving,
suffering.
yeah, desire does not.
So desire is kind of maybe misrepresented. Like, I
Yes.
desire something that's not bad. I
That's not
crave
bad.
it, and I'm attached to it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's what's bad.
That's what bad. Remember the analogy of the hot room?
Yeah.
Yeah, the craving is like, oh my gosh, I need. to feel colder, but it's too hot, and then you're like agitated in the floor of that room. So you're craving for something. You're too attached to the craving that you cannot see that there's a window. And in the other situation, you're there, you're feeling the hotness, but you're equanimous. You're not reacting to the aversion of trying to avoid the pain of the hotness. And then you see the window, and then you realize, it would be nice to be a little bit colder. That's a desire, you know? And that's good. Just open the window.
Without desire, you won't get anything done, right?
Yes, exactly. Desire is needed, and that's okay. So when we dive deep into consciousness, one thing is remember, like the drawing of the cup of water. They're just like representations. So language is a representation. We have to keep that in mind all the time. So when Buddha talked, his teachings were written in Pali. That was the language, the popular language of that time. So as a language, it has its limitations. For example, there's Sanskrit, that was this mystical language that was created to talk specifically about consciousness. That's not the same thing. Yeah.
I had no clue.
Yeah, it was a sacred language. It was not spoken like in a daily basis, you know. It was spoken to talk about consciousness. So it's like math, you know. You don't talk math on your daily basis, but we use math all the time for a specific purpose. So Sanskrit was created for that. So
which is
there's
why. Sorry, go ahead. Just finish your thought.
For example, Sanskrit, there's no misrepresentations in Sanskrit. We know exactly what it's meant, each sentence. In a popular language, we don't. We have like interpretations. We need interpretation to understand what's being said. For example, if I say in English, I love you too. Ethan, I love you too. What does that mean? It can be that, Ethan, I love you too. I love you back. You said to me, I love you, Henrique, and I'm saying it to you back. I love you, Ethan. But I can say at the same time, I love you, Ethan. It can mean that I love you and respect you. I respect you and I love you too. It's a different thing.
Based on context.
Yeah, based on context. So I love you, Ethan. I love you too. Okay, I love you too. I can say I love you too, and I'm referring to I love Rodrigo, and I love you, Ethan. I love you too. So three different meanings for the same sentence. I love you too.
Yeah.
So every time we talk about consciousness, always keep in mind, like, okay, there's language. Language is a representation. So in the translation from Pali to English, what happened? So it was translated clinging, and desire and craving was translated as desire. It's two different things.
That makes sense.
It's subtle, but it's different.
In like even Sanskrit too is a representation, but it was built on these spiritual ideas, so it's a more direct representation.
Yes, exactly. It's closer. It's still a representation. So every spiritual teaching at some point says that we cannot describe what's going on. So we're just like pointing directions. So try that. Try this. Try those 3 steps, and then you'll have an experience, and then you'll know what it is. So Buddha doesn't talk about enlightenment. You can read all of the sutras, and he's not going to talk about what enlightenment is.
It's all negation.
Right? Yeah, it's all negation.
He says everything that it's not, but he never says what it is, because you can't.
You cannot describe it. So what's his job? Is to point fingers, like, do this. Sit and meditate and observe anicca, observe impermanence, observe the non-self, observe the, observe all these aspects. And then you realize at some point,
Yeah, 100%. That's what I was going to say. I always heard the analogy of finger to the moon. Like, like you pointing to the moon, the thought is the finger. You're trying to experience the moon. Oh,
Yeah.
I did not explain that right, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
language is the signpost to
Yeah.
what it's telling
What
you
really
where to
is?
go.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think a huge problem in our culture and that I grew up with is that in my education process, language is seen as the end all be all. It's like, this is the truth. This idea, this is true.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's just an idea. There's something
just,
else that's just a language. That's just a concept.
Yeah.
And so you get all these relative truths. It's like 2 + 2 = 4. Yes, that it's a relative truth. But the
Yes.
absolute truth is beyond language. So there's distinctions. Relative truth, it's not bad to learn and be educated on relative truths. But
No,
we
it
have
helps a lot.
it helps, yeah. Like if you don't, then you're gonna be super ignorant and
Yeah.
you're not gonna know anything. But at the same time, we have no context of absolute truth. So we're built on, I don't know, I'm thinking of like putting together some sort of like article on this because I found like I want to think about this topic more. It's so interesting. It's like the entire scientific culture is missing absolute truth. Basically, like
Yes.
it's completely founded on relative truths and conceptual
Yeah.
truths that it sees concepts and external things as what is true, and then anything that says that leads to ultimate truth is kind of shunned upon. So like God or like anything like relating to spiritual, it's like, oh, that's an absolute truth that doesn't exist. Like that's not what we focus on. You have no context for it, and so it's almost like it's hard to teach a lot of these stuff stuff we talked about in this podcast, especially at the end too, like impermanence, the language map is not the territory. Like it's hard for people to grasp these things
Yes.
because we don't have the framework in our culture to understand what absolute truth is, right?
Yeah, we don't.
And it's the challenge of all spiritual traditions too. Like I want to like I like what you said at the beginning. It's like some techniques work for some people, others it doesn't. Like there's not like one way to do it. It's like
Yeah.
go and try out a bunch of different spiritual practices. Some will lead you to the truth, others will not. It's based on your experience. And like personally, I've been so engrossed in these different spiritual ideas for so long. I'm like, it's almost like only in my mind. It's like, oh, well, if this many people talk about the same experience, there must be something there. But it's no matter how much I meditate, I haven't had that experience. But that doesn't mean that I'm never gonna have it. It just means I haven't had it yet.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or maybe it
I
doesn't
have.
exist, and I'm just
Maybe it
chasing my
doesn't
tail.
exist in that way. Yeah. Maybe, for example, how would you describe your finger pain? Like a pain in your hand, and another person describing the same pain in their hand. For example, you're both in the hot room. How you're going to describe the experience that you're having in this hot room is completely different. So if you're trying to experience the experience of the other person, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're lucky, you can have a similar experience, so you can relate to that and be okay. That's good, and be comfortable with that. But maybe you have a completely different experience, or your perception or interpretation from that is completely different.
That's the problem with the signpost too. It's like, or with language itself. It's like what someone explains their experience as, the same words that they understand their experience with, for you those words mean something different. It's like the craving and desire thing. It's like different languages have different meanings, same way that different people or some languages don't translate like straight one to the other, one to one. Same way, like the way you explain something is going to be different from the way I explain the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess I didn't never really like understood it this deeply, but this kind of made me realize like you can't just read one spiritual text and understand it all.
Yeah.
Because that spiritual text could explain it in a completely different way than you understand it. Like,
Yes, exactly.
that's why we need to read a ton of different spiritual books in order to find a meaning that actually like makes sense to us, that we understand, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit further, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a word in Pali, the language of Buddha, that's called panya. Panya means wisdom. So Buddha would say that there's 3 kinds of wisdom. There's 3 layers of wisdom. Okay, the first layer is called Suttamaya Panya, the wisdom of the sacred texts. So I'll use a story to make it easier to understand. Imagine that you have tuberculosis. Okay, but you don't know it. You're just like feeling bad. You're just coughing blood. That's wrong. That's not good. So you're coughing blood, and then you get desperate, and then you go to the doctor, and the doctor diagnoses you with, okay, you have tuberculosis. So he gives you that, like, okay, this is the medicine, antibiotics. So you got to take it twice a day for 7 days, and then you'll be healed. Okay, that's the spiritual text. That's the kind of wisdom. Now you're relieved because you know what you have, you know how to heal it. But then you come home and you just say, mom, dad, like, family, I have tuberculosis and I know how to heal it. My doctor is excellent. He knows everything. I just need to take those pills twice a day for 7 days and I'll be healed. And then what happens is that you worship that. And you have like the vask of the pills in your altar, and then you repeat every single day the mantra, I have tuberculosis. I need to take 2 pills every single day during 7 days and then I'll be healed. I have tuberculosis, take 2 pills every single day for 7 days and I'll be healed. My doctor is excellent. That's a wisdom. You know, you have the recipe for enlightenment, for example. You have the recipe.
Some people don't even have that. It's a step ahead of some people, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely,
you're not all the
it's a
way.
step ahead. Now you know you have tuberculosis. Now you have to treat yourself. So if you don't, you're gonna die. So you have to treat yourself. You know what to treat, and you know how to treat. That's excellent. That's a really good step. But it's just a step. That's just Suttamaya Panya. So there's a second level of wisdom. That's Chittamaya Panya. The intellectual wisdom. When you understand what's beyond everything, you understand that tuberculosis is a bacteria that's in your lungs. When you take the antibiotic, it kills the bacteria. You have to take it like twice a day because bacteria reproduce like tuberculosis bacteria reproduce every 20 hours. So you have to take it in 12 hours so the bacteria don't reproduce. You have to take it for 7 days because if you stop earlier, the more resistant bacteria are going to keep alive and they are going to multiplicate again, and then tuberculosis is going to be worse next time. So you understand everything. You understand everything. At this point, you may even stop like reciting like 2 pills a day, blah, 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 because now you know. Now you understand. But you don't take the pills. You still don't take the pills. And that's interesting because like the really profound spiritual teachings, they're like this recipe. They're like pointing fingers to do this, be that, observe this. Take 2 pills a day. Every 12 hours for 7 days. And when you do that, you reach the third level of wisdom that's called Bhavanamaya Panya, the wisdom of direct experience. That's when you take the medicine You take twice a day for 7 days. After 7 days, you're healed from the tuberculosis. Funny thing is, you don't need the first 2 to take the pills.
You can cure it without even knowing what the disease is.
Yeah. You didn't know the disease. You didn't know what you were taking. You were just taking.
If we went on long enough with this analogy, the analogy is enlightenment is taking the pills.
Yes. Not just enlightenment, but healing, for example, as well. It's the same thing.
Or yeah, I guess
all these processes are the same
thing. Growth and like stuff.
Yeah.
Is taking the pill. Not, you can read as many self-improvement books as you want.
Yes.
Unless you actually do it, you're not going to experiencing anything. That same idea.
Yeah. Exactly. So
why do people not take the pill? Like it's like, it sounds so simple. Like, why don't you just take the pill? Why don't you just actually practice it? Like, what might be stopping people is like,
well, many things
discomfort.
Might be sometimes it is, because if you're coughing blood right now, you start taking the pills, it's antibiotics. Antibiotics are going to kill your intestinal flora. They're going to kill the good bacteria as well. So during the first 3-4 days that you're taking the pill, you're going to feel worse, because now you have diarrhea as well.
I feel like shit.
Yeah, you feel like shit. You feel weaker, because a lot of strongness and strength from our body comes from our gut. The bacteria in our gut. So you're killing it. You're killing the good one. So you feel weaker for 4 days. But in the 5th day, you stop coughing blood. On the 7th day, you're healed from tuberculosis, but you're still feeling bad. You'll take another month for your gut bacteria to regenerate. So the process is long. People stop at many times and at many different stops. So they start taking the pills, like in the 2nd day they feel weak. Oh, that's not working. Look, I'm still coughing blood and now I feel weak. Let me stop it.
Yeah. I think and then we can use the same analogy for healing work too. It's like, once you start healing, it hurts more. Catharsis.
It can hurt more. Not all the time. Sometimes it won't hurt more, but sometimes it will. So that's a mindset to go through that process. Like, you're not here to feel good. You're here to feel. You're here to feel yourself. Feel whatever. It comes up.
It's a good mindset shift.
Yeah. You're just here to feel yourself. Just feel. Just feel.
Just feel alive, babe.
Yeah. Feel alive. Feel the pleasure of being alive. Feel the pain of being alive.
Yeah, don't run from it. Just embrace it.
Embrace both of them.
Go towards it. Don't run away.
Both of them are real. Be the direct experience. That's the thing.
From enlightenment to tuberculosis and back to shadow work, back to healing.
Yeah. And so that's why it's very important to do the practice, because like the dance between doing and being, you cannot be if you don't do your part. It's a small part, but you got to do it. It's a small part, but you got to do your small part. And that's breathing, for example. You got to breathe.
You got to breathe.
Yeah. And I have a teacher that he has like a teaching that's incredible. He says, like, if you succeed, if you fail, he says, if you fail, start again. If you succeed, start again. So that's mindset, Every single day, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to start again. Oh, I'm completely healed from my trauma. I don't know. Just start again. Oh, yesterday it didn't work. No problem. Start again. But last day it was really, really powerful. I feel healed. Start again.
I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
It's really similar to the idea of like, what did we talk about earlier? Impermanence. It's like, oh, I feel really good. I feel really good right now. It's like, it shall pass. I feel really
Shall
bad
pass.
right now. It shall pass.
Yeah. Enjoy both of them.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
Enjoy both of them.
Just no understanding impermanence. I feel like the key, not the key takeaway from this, but like something that I really like think is going to be valuable going forward, and that the listeners can as well. Understanding the importance of impermanence, or like how much your life can change when you change your relationship to one of craving to one of impermanence, because that's kind of what we're talking about too. It's like the
Yes.
emotional work, it almost relates back to that same idea. Right now
Yes.
we have
Totally.
cravings in repulsions, or like we want or we don't want certain feelings and emotions. That's the craving side of things. Craving is what causes suffering. So in your emotions, in your thoughts, in literally anything, it's like that you can completely change your life if you just realize that it too shall pass. You can completely change your relationship with everything if you realize that. Start again. Like it is what it is. It's not, what was the brief summary? It's like, what was the idea? Is like impermanence is like, don't crave it. If it might feel really bad right now, but that's all right because it shall pass. If you push it away, that'll make it, what you resist persist, is another saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a key takeaway.
Yeah. And breathe throughout all of those processes. It really helps.
And just breathe.
Just breathe. Yeah.
Breathe in that prana.
Yeah. Breathe in that prana. The breathing will connect everything, your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, your energetic spiritual body.
Just breathe. Don't get down on yourself when you fuck up.
Yeah, that's a part of the process.
That's an important part, really, because if you do, this is the paradox that I've seen. Like, if you fall off track, if you get mad for falling off track, you're gonna fall off track even more. If you say, "Oh, it's okay that I fell off track," that's gonna help you get back on track. You think it would be the other way around. If I get mad at myself for falling off track, that should make me be like, damn, like I need to like punish myself so that I can do better next time. But in reality, it's like, don't punish yourself, because if you say it's okay, then it's going to be easier to get right back on track the next day.
Yeah.
Right on, right on.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's a good ending place. I think we covered just about everything that we could cover in this episode.
Beautiful.
I guess the last thing would be, where can the audience find you? Is there any place that you would direct them to? Or I guess do you not have anything in English?
Yeah, I don't have anything in English, like material. The content that I produce, it's in Portuguese. But you can have my WhatsApp number, and you can have my Instagram account. So you can DM me so we can talk about anything. I'm here to help. So if you're interested in going deeper into sessions, we can do this work online. So right now I have many clients from different places in the world: Germany, Qatar, far away from Brazil. Brazil is super giant. So it's a possibility to work together. So you can reach me on WhatsApp. You can reach me via DM on Instagram as well.
Yeah, I'll put those in the description of the episode so that you can find them there, anyone listening. And then, yeah, definitely. So definitely do a session with Henrique. So I've done one. Me and you did one last week. It was super powerful. Everything that we talked about in this episode, we embodied that. We put that into practice. and I'm
Direct experience.
direct experience. We took the red pill.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
didn't. Do you want the blue pill or the red pill? We took the red pill
Yes.
of this
Perfect.
emotional healing work, and I would definitely recommend it. That's how you make an income full time now. So like,
Yes.
you're open to new clients. If someone were, I would definitely recommend reaching out and working with you.
Perfect. It will be a pleasure.
All right.